Earlier on this year, KBI UK was approached by the Royal Horticultural Society's Harlow Carr site about relaying some of the pathways in these historic gardens. We're here today to talk to Curator of the site, Paul Cook, about the problems that the old pathways faced and why KBI's Flexi Pave material was chosen. We'll also be finding out about the impact that the new pathways have had.
We're on quite a sloping site, and we need a good material that will take a lot of visitors, a lot of traffic. But some of the pathways we were finding were too hard. We were getting a lot of runoff in heavy downpours. Because although we're in Yorkshire, it is drier than the west side, but we get very heavy rainfall around Harrogate. And then at the ends of the pathways, particularly where there was a path meeting, plenty of erosion and just path repairs all the time. The RHS as an organisation has been looking at sort of different materials and looking at different ways to use materials in the gardens, and as part of that we were looking at front gardens and particularly how water runoff affected urban gardens. So we saw that porous paving existed, but we just hadn't used it before.
And what led you to getting into contact with KBI and finding out about the Flexi Pave product?
Partly because seen it on a golf course on one occasion and just thinking, well, it had the look of a solid material. People weren't really noticing it, but I could see already that it was absorbing the water, but it actually looks good as well.
We've noticed just from being on site today and taking footage of some of the areas that the Flexi Pave has been applied, that it's not just old pathways that have been regenerated. There are some newer areas in the woodland part of the park.
Yeah, the idea is to sort of use it in different areas, so in shady areas, high volume traffic areas, slopes, and to give it a really good test. Also, the other thing was the different types of topping on it, so the different types of gravel. We've used loose gravel before and it just washes away. So having the gravel bound in the top surface makes a real difference.
And within those woodland areas that we mentioned, there are some new build shelters that have been put up in those areas. One of them in particular has got a rather pretty mosaic in the centre of it, and we've been able to lay the material right up to that. How big a sort of a criteria was that to be able to work around those areas of detail within the park?
Well, we are an ornamental garden, so it's not just about providing access, it's making it look attractive as well. So being able to use different materials with the porous paving and also to mould it round different structures, it needs to feel organic and as well as dealing just with the water and erosion.
And some of the sections have been able to blend very, very nicely with the existing pathways where they've been either tabbed on or certain areas have been relayed. The blend is actually seamless. You can notice visually that there's a difference, but from an engineering point of view, it's all gone in very, very nicely.
Yeah, we used the samples that we were given to sort of actually put on the ground and see how they would fit in with the landscape. And altering the mix so it makes sure that it isn't that obvious blocky effect that you can sometimes get with different materials.
What's the feedback been like from a customer point of view? Has there been any comment back to the park as a result of the areas that have been laid?
I mean, what we're looking for is that people almost like don't notice the changes, that we've made quite a few improvements to the garden and people just walk on and without noticing that we've done anything completely different. What we notice is the fact that when it does rain, we're not constantly repairing the footpaths, and that for us is a big time saver.
The key criteria and the key element, I suppose, of Flexi Pave is its porosity. The fact that water will go directly through it. In terms of maintenance, the trees, the wooded areas, the grassed areas that you've got in the park, how big an impact will that have on the park long term?
We've already seen it this year because we formerly had to close paths off where the water stood and then frosted, or the fact that we're constantly scraping gravel off and mud. So although we had some concerns about that the silt would actually go into it, because of the actual action of the water, it seems to sort of almost self-cleanse itself. And we've had a good few months now with no problems and no flooding issues.
And there's a new element to the learning centre. There's a new building that's currently going up at the moment. Am I right in saying that Flexi Pave is going to go around that new building?
That's right, it's a green building, green oak, it's got a green roof on it, there's no gutters on it. We're looking for, we want to have a very light touch with the buildings we do, so that would fit perfectly with our scheme.